Hello everyone, so Nala is 7 days into her Proestrus cycle here now. She's still licking, bleeding is still occurring, Kenai is still following. He isn't trying to initiate anything really, he's just following her around, hovering a lot. But she's panting a bit, but that could be just where she's steady playing. She's sleeping a lot more. Hey Miss Nala! She is though nearing the end of her Proestrus phase of her heat cycle. Usually only lasts between 7 to 10 days. Last time her Proestrus phase only lasted approximately 6.5 days, almost 7 days. Again, it lasts anywhere between 7 to 10. Heat cycles last for 4 weeks. If you missed those other videos, I've mentioned it prior in other videos about how long the heat cycle lasts for. You want to document when the heat started. As soon as you see bleeding, the vulva expanding, excessive licking, things of that nature, you want to mark it down and go approximately 4 weeks from the moment you notice that. The more heat cycles your dog has, the more you'll start to gauge and know exactly how long, if it's 2, if it's 3, or if it's 4 weeks. If bleeding occurs for more than 4 weeks, keep note of this. Certainly contact your vet because there could be something underlying going on that could be a cause of concern, so certainly keep track. Very important, especially if your dog isn't spayed, regardless if you plan on mating them or not. Nope, she's still sitting. Hey girlie, still sitting. See, I'm not ready yet. He said I'll sit with her. Little ones are over there playing. It's quite windy today, overcast. Hey Nala. But yeah, she's definitely sleeping a nice bit more. Temperament hasn't changed, even with Kenai steady following and sniffing. Hey Kenai. Her temperament is still the same. She's not aggressive or anything like that. Her appetite also hasn't changed either, and I have mentioned that before. That's something that hasn't changed, and it normally doesn't with Nala in terms of her heat cycles. Sniffing around. And Kenai staying very close. Dodger still not showing any interest. He honestly hasn't even really hovered her, sniffed her, nothing. He's just out doing his own thing with his sisters. Ariel over there. I'd say Claire is behind the doghouse. No, and Claire. Yeah, I can see her. What is she doing? Well, you guys need some water in your pool. What are you doing, girlie? Oh, digging a little tiny hole or picking at the roots that your sister started picking at yesterday. Why don't you go over and dig in the sandbox? There he goes, following her again. And she's sitting. Hey Nala. Something else you have to keep in mind too is bleeding will not stay constant in terms of being heavy all the time, light all the time throughout the entire cycle. And if it stops for a few days, it's no cause of alarm. Just keep note of it. But I would still go 4 weeks before allowing the dog to interact with a male or anything, especially if it's not spayed and you don't want them to become pregnant. Go 4 weeks. Like I mentioned in yesterday's video, just to be on the safe side, you can. They don't technically last for that long, but if you want to be safe and sorry and just tack on an extra 2 weeks in case you're not 100% sure the exact start date of the heat cycle, then that is fine too. But yes, the consistency of the bleeding changes throughout the heat cycle, and again, sometimes it might stop just for a few hours or a day or two, but don't take that as the heat has officially stopped. Give it a few days and then you'll be able to know. And like I said, the more your dog is in a heat cycle, the more you'll be able to gauge and know and understand how long their heat actually is in regards to how many days. But there are a lot of factors that go into how long a dog's heat cycle is. Age, breed of the dog, all of that matters when it comes to their heat cycles. And no two heat cycles are identical. They will tend to have some similarities, but it's not 100% similar. So this is why it's so important to write it down, write everything you notice down and just keep track of the start date and finish date of each cycle. Hey Nala. Kenai's still sniffing. He is kind of initiating now, and even yesterday I kind of noticed it, but he's not forcefully trying to initiate or make her uncomfortable. And if there's any point I'm noticing she's starting to get agitated with it, I'll jump in and either bring her indoors or separate the two of them. But Kenai doesn't normally do that. Keep pushing and pushing until he really upsets her or anything like that. When she lets him know that she doesn't want to, he backs off. He's really good about that. What do you see, Kenai? Back to sniffing, is he? And following. So yes, with the Proestrus phase, you're looking at the vulva, if it increased in size or not. As I showed in yesterday's video, that is a huge indicator, as well as bleeding is a massive indicator of heat cycle. Some dogs' appetite, sleep, for some dogs you'll notice a change. Temperament, you'll notice for some dogs a change as well when it comes to a heat cycle. Hey Nala. A male steady hovering and sniffing. The female's private area is another indicator of heat cycle and that Proestrus has started. Hey Nalabi. The female steady sitting when the male is constantly sniffing around and hovering is another indicator of Proestrus, because they're not technically ready just yet to start mating. Once in the estrus phase, that's when you start to see more mating going on with the male and female. But yes, with Proestrus, it's just mostly the male hovering around, sniffing, following the female, masking her scent. So when she goes to pee, he usually covers it up with his pee. You'll see, like I said, the other things I mentioned earlier with the vulva and bleeding and stuff like that. And if you plan on not having your dog pregnant and they're not spayed, just know that in Proestrus, pregnancy can still occur. It's not as common as the next phase of the heat cycle. The next phase in estrus, usually that's when pregnancy will mostly occur, but the possibility is still there in Proestrus, so still be cautious and aware, especially if you don't want your dog to mate when other males are around. And even if you have a fence, this is something a lot of people don't think of. Even if you do have a fence, please still monitor your dog when they're out in the yard if they aren't spayed and you don't want them to become pregnant, because a male still can initiate and mate with the female through a fence. It's been known to happen, so that is something to be aware of. And a male can come from far away because they smell that scent for a nice distance, so please be aware of that. Males far away can come along and try to mate with your female, even if they're in a fenced backyard. Hey Kenai. Yes, you boys can smell a female in heat for a long distance, can't you? So again, please just be aware that if your dog isn't spayed and they're in the backyard and you don't want them to become pregnant, keep an eye, even if the yard is fenced. Another thing you really want to keep an eye on is your female, especially in the next phase of heat cycle when their hormones are raging and they want to mate. Keep an eye on them in the backyard, because they might try to escape. Even if the backyard is fenced, they might find a weak point and try to get out. So in other words, if your dog isn't spayed and they're in a heat cycle, certainly keep close tabs on them when outdoors, even if the yard is fenced. Kenai's going. She's chewing on branches. Kenai's following. Nala. You're determined to get that branch, aren't you, Claire? She's like, I must get it. Careful that don't snap back in your little face. All that working, you only got a little tiny bit off. Oh well, something is better than nothing, I guess. Hey, we're gonna end off this video by saying that Nala's just doing exceptionally well. Kenai's been really good too. He hasn't been forcefully trying to mate with her or anything like that. When she pretty much says, okay, back off or leave me alone, he respects it. So good boy, Kenai. Yeah, good boy. And good girl, Nala. You're both doing absolutely amazing, and all the little ones are doing really well too. Even Dodger, like I said, is paying no attention to her. But that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye now.